Joining us like he always does during the NFL season, Brian Baldinger, All City NFL Network, and Baldy. Arizona Cardinals just about 10 days ago were sitting at 2-4. Fast forward and 2 wins over 2 pretty good teams. The Chargers on Monday night, then they fly out east and beat the Dolphins just 6 days later. You know, I mentioned this on our postgame show. Historically, this is not a game the Arizona Cardinals win. You know, traveling out east, early kickoff, short week. Most people pick the Dolphins to win. Big emotional comeback for Tua. And yet, at the end of the day, it was Kyler Murray and company holding up the victory ball. Like, what did you see from this team that allowed them to persevere over 4 quarters?
Well, all those things you mentioned were spot on. But, I mean, I saw a scrappy bunch. A bunch that, scrapped all the way to the end, the final drive to go down and kick the game-winning field goal. Like, they never quit. Budda Baker hit everything that moved. He's just a remarkable player. They got the most out of what they had. Look, I mean, the big runs weren't there for James Conner. They're a little big in the middle, even without Sealer. So Kyler had to play big. This is kind of a franchise quarterback. Both teams have sort of put their chips to the table. And in my mind, I thought even with I thought he outplayed him. I thought he outplayed Tua. Tua played well, but I thought Kyler probably played his best game. Got the ball to a number of different players. Obviously, you got Marvin involved. McBride looked like he can be a star tight end in this business. And then he made good decisions with the football. And so I thought that was part of it. And then just once again, just like the San Francisco game, I thought Nick Reales had a couple of pressures at just the opportune time, just to get enough pressure on Tua to knock him out, force an incompletion, force a punt, get him off the field, like pretty timely in some of his overloaded pressures. And he seems to have a knack for it because it worked against San Francisco, a month ago, and it worked again last Sunday in Miami.
Baldy, a sigh of relief from this fan base as they saw the connection between Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. get back on track after kind of stagnant couple weeks between week 2 and now week 8. What did you see that really kind of got Marvin Harrison Jr. going for the 2 of 6 catches for 111 yards and that touchdown?
Well, I mean, it looked like they were looking for him, number one. It didn't look like he was just a guy out there, running through seams. Like they were looking for him. And, they put him – look, you put him at the X position, like over on the left side, that's going to be Jalen Ramsey right there. Like sometimes you go up against – and he's an elite player and he's a smart player. Sometimes that brings out the best in an opponent. Okay, this isn't like – some guy that's just out there. This is Jalen Ramsey. He's won a Super Bowl. He's been an All-Pro. Like he's played on elite defenses in this business with the Rams, with Jacksonville. He's a marquee corner, and sometimes that brings the best out of guys. But the good thing is they didn't back down at all. They went at him. They got him in some man coverage, and they stayed with him. And Kyler didn't get off him, especially on the touchdown throw. But I just thought they called his number, and they were looking for him. And that's something I didn't feel like they were doing. I think there's a lot more they could do. I mean, I still think there's some rub routes, there's some hitches, there's some stop routes, there's some stick routes. I still think there's ways to get him the ball, especially if he's at the X and your strength is over here on the right because Kyler's left-handed. He's looking right at him. I think it's an easier throw, just like Tua hitting Tyreek. You see a little bit of that, from these guys. But, I just think Kyler, was looking for him. And I don't think it was a whole lot more than that. I mean, he was looking for him. They called his number, and he was able to get it to him.
Yeah, I think a big part of that, catching the ball with his hands this week, having immense confidence, and just kind of having a throwback game. Reminded me of watching Marvin every Saturday at college football. I want to turn our attention to a breakdown you had on your Twitter. It was a tremendous Baldy breakdown of the aforementioned Budda Baker. And, we were in Miami for the game. We saw it live, and it was a throwback performance for number 3. But then to watch your breakdown on top of that, I think it's easy, Baldy, for some of us to think, Budda's getting up there in age. He's going to be 29, 30 years old. He plays a, quote, devalued position. They've got Taylor Demerson waiting in the wings. And then you watch a game like Sunday, it's like, can they allow this guy to leave the building at the end of the year?
I don't know. To me, he's the heartbeat. I mean, James Conner and Budda Baker, those two guys look indispensable to me. Now, I don't want to overlook, other guys, but I just feel like Budda is that heartbeat on defense. I nicknamed him, years ago, the Cobra. Like he strikes like a Cobra. He loves it. I think he got shoes made with the Cobra on or whatever. But like that's how he plays the game. Like he doesn't let a play get started. And if you let any of those guys that he hit, whether it was Waddle or the HN, you let those guys get started. I mean, they're a blur. But you got to get them early. You got to get them early. I think Buddha knew that. I mean, he pulled his trigger a couple times now, full speed, and he plays the game. He's absolutely fearless. I love the way he plays the game. It's remarkable how healthy he has been throughout his career. But I don't know, like if I'm looking at creating, my guys that can't leave this building, whatever we got to do to keep them and make them Cardinals for the next 3 years or for life. I mean, Buddha and James Conner are two of those guys for me that I don't want ever to leave.
Going into the 2023 season, Baldy, the Arizona Cardinals didn't have a 100-yard receiver at the tight end position since 1989. It was position of futility. They draft Trey McBride. He emerges last year, 80 catches, 800 yards, and hasn't stopped since. He had his third 100-yard performance in the last 2 seasons. When is the rest of the league? When is everybody else going to catch up on how good this guy? And where do you put him as far as all these great tight ends?
Oh, he's got to find the end zone. He's got to you got to catch touchdown passes. I mean, you catch, you can get the numbers that he got last week in some other games, and you can put up the yards, but you got to get in the end zone. I mean, Travis Kelce has 100. So we're not going to go there. George Kittle's finding the end zone nearly every single week, but he's a very good player. But that's the next step. Is okay. We get down to the 18-yard line. Where's McBride? We get down to the 6-yard line. Where's McBride? What are teams going to do to stop him? So to me, you can have the catches, you can have the yards, you can have the day that he had on Sunday. This is a business that we measure, that position and receivers by touchdowns. Like how much damage are you doing? And I think he's got to find the end zone here before we start kind of putting him in any kind of a category.
Let's talk about head coach Jonathan Gannon. Baldy, you came on with us before the season started, and we kind of asked you a layup question. What do you want to see from the Cardinals this year? And you had mentioned beat good teams, beat teams in close games on the road. And as the Cardinals sit 4-4, they've gone through what has been unequivocally the hardest schedule in the NFL. I mean, I think their 4 losses are to teams that combine like 24-7. They've got the 4th easiest schedule remaining, the final 9 games of the regular season. Like, what are your expectations for how this team finishes? They're in first place in the NFC West. I know a lot of people don't assume they'll stay there, but are they ahead of schedule in your opinion?
Well, I'd like to have this conversation after they play Chicago this weekend because it's a good team. It's a better defense. It's probably if I look at the schedule here, I would say the Bears have a better defense. Maybe Buffalo's. But the Bears are up there. They're top 5 defense. I mean, Washington outside of the Hail Mary last week couldn't penetrate. They couldn't get it in the end zone. This is a good defense. They beat the Bears. I mean, it's going to be, believe me, no offense here to the Arizona Cardinals, their fans, their stadium, but the Bear fans are already traveling there.
Oh,
it's going to be bear down world. So it's going to feel like it's against them, but that's okay. But they're going to travel. So. But this is a very solid team. They found a way. I don't know how they lost that game. Honestly, last week I announced it. I still don't know how they lost it. But the quarterback did not play well until the 4th quarter. The defense is very good. I mean, they really don't have a weakness. I mean, they play hard. They've got depth. Their corners are really good. Their safeties are this is a very good football team, and they're well coached. So this is. And not to take anything away from Miami or San Francisco or the Rams or anybody else they beat. This is, I think, as good a defense as they played. So are they ahead of schedule? They beat the Bears, and they knocked them down to 4 because this is the AFC or the NFC now. So we're all fighting for playoff spots. They go to 5-4, and the Bears go to 4-4, and you stay on first place in the NFC West. I say they're ahead of schedule because there's clearly, as you turn the calendar to November, in the playoff hunt. I mean, I think they are whether they win or lose, but if they beat another good team and you beat them at home, the fan base is going to get ratcheted up. You're going to drown out those Bear fans, and the players inside that building are going to start really believing that they can be a player this year, despite I mean, nobody's going to compare them roster-wise, as an elite team. They're not. But they play hard and they play together, and they find ways to win close games. So that's still a pretty good formula.
Sunday will mark the 17th game post ACL surgery for Kyler Murray and in this new offense. And, he had a multi-touchdown performance on Sunday, found Marv and Trey McBride often in that game and has taken care of the football. He's got a touchdown pass in each and every one of the games this season. What's been your evaluation for Kyler Murray now, almost with a full season's worth of games under his belt?
Yeah, I think a lot of the knock on Kyler was, you talk to a Bill Belichick or you talk to the Patriots who played him and, just keep him in the pocket. He can't beat you from the pocket. Well, he's beat the Dolphins from the pocket right down the field last week. I think he's overcoming some of the naysayers. I think he looks very confident to me. I don't think he's relying solely on his ability to run and extend. I feel like he can throw from the pocket. He can throw on the move. And so I feel like he's still developing. Like there's still another level, I think, for Kyler to go to, a more consistent Kyler Murray. And so I'm kind of watching that right now and seeing, we're not seeing the real bad plays. We're not seeing bad interceptions, tip ball interceptions. We're not seeing that right now. He's doing a pretty good job of taking care of the football, and he's protecting himself, yet not being conservative. So I think, when we look at a league right now that is, I don't think we're seeing great quarterback play outside of a couple guys. We're seeing a lot of teams, 10 of the top teams in this league right now are running it more than they're throwing it. That's the trend. But Kyler, fits in that trend of guys that can run it and, all those kind of things. I feel like he's still developing and getting better. I think Marvin and Trey can really help him right now. I mean, he can really lean on those guys because he doesn't have to be perfect to getting the ball to either one because of their catch radius and the way that they go get the ball. So I feel like there's another level for Kyler to go to.
I would agree with that. And I think kind of a hidden stat has been his elusiveness in the pocket to throw, right? Running to throw as opposed to, running to run, so to speak, in years prior. That kind of leads me to my last question, Baldy. The Cardinals have not allowed a sack in 3 games, which is the first time since the mid-'70s. We know who was sporting on the St. Louis football Cardinal offensive line once upon a time, started with Dan Dierdorf and company. Wow. Is the Cardinal offensive line one of the more slept-on units in the NFL, led by second-year player Paris Johnson Jr. to you?
Yeah, I mean, look at what Beach is doing at right tackle. I mean, I don't know, he's the third right tackle this year, but he's just such a high-character guy. Like, I know he's prepared, he's doing the best he can to get ready. But look, I mean, Froholt is climbing the ladder in my mind about centers. He's athletic, he's tough, he moves bodies. I mean, I feel like they are slept on a little bit because they have consistently been a pretty good running football team when they've had to. And they've protected, obviously, like the stat. I did not know that stat, by the way. That's impressive. I don't care who's back there playing quarterback. You go 3 weeks without it. I hope those guys are getting some game balls in some of these wins right now.
Absolutely. I want to sneak one more in because I just want to move the chains on a question from last week, and then we'll get you off into week 9. Johnny had asked as far as this team and it contending for the NFC West. And now I know comeback wins in the fourth quarter is no way to make a living in this league consistently, but here we are at 4-4 atop the NFC West division. What's it going to take for the Arizona Cardinals? Maybe an acquisition, maybe it's just improving in certain areas, in your opinion, to steal this division?
Well, let's just make believe here. Let's just say the Arizona Cardinals say, you know what? Gardeck is down. All these guys have gotten hurt. Let's go get Jadeveon Clowney. Let's go pluck him from Carolina. First of all, I like Jadeveon. He's not a great pass rusher. He's a great athlete, and he's a great teammate. And he plays hard. He plays the game the right way. But let's just say, Monti goes out there and plucks Jadeveon, and he comes into that locker room. That's going to be something like that. That would be something nobody would ever expect from a Bidwell-owned team, from the Cardinals. They've never seen that. That's what the 49ers should be doing. That's what the Eagles do. The Cardinals don't do that kind of stuff. But what if they did? What if they did say, you know what, this NFC West is wide open. Let's go get ourselves a pass rusher. Let's go get a playmaker. Let's go get another athlete on football that plays the game the way Kazir plays and Buddha plays and Jalen plays. Like we play hard here. We run to the ball. We make things happen. Like, what if they did something like that? Like, that would, I don't know, it might send shockwaves, but it also would send a clear message to Kyler and Marvin and a bunch of guys like, man, we're in it to win it. We're in it to – because I think the Rams are going to be a really good team the second half of the season. I think the 49ers have weaknesses that can be exposed, especially outside of Nick Bosa. Like, there's not a whole lot of guys that are getting home. Like, you saw what they look like, and they kind of disappear at times in games. So, I mean, I still think they're a good football team, but, I mean, you've already beat them once. You're going to get them at home. Why can't the Cardinals compete for it right now?
You made a great point that I think needs to be emphasized, Baldy. We know with these GMs in San Francisco and LA, historically, they make these kind of moves. And so what kind of message are you sending or indirectly not sending by not trading for help, especially when you look at Buda Baker and James Conner, great stalwarts of this organization. Last year, their deal, whether or not they're brought back, that's conversation for the spring. But like, these guys have helped put you in a position to be in first place here, maybe entering the bye week. And for you not to make a move, I would argue maybe that's more impactful than making a move, is the messaging that would send. I think that would be very disheartening. And then you watch, San Francisco maybe try to reunite with a DeForest Buckner. I'm just throwing things out there. Yeah. I think it can send a message in the wrong way to a locker room.
No, I mean, it could definitely work both ways. I mean, Buda's been there, for a long time. He's seen coaches and GM and all this stuff go. He might. We're just the Cardinals. We're not buyers. We're sellers. Whatever. And he'll just go, well, let's just pull the bootstraps up and let's just rally and we'll just keep scrapping like we've been doing. But I mean, if you bring in a great player right now, or two, and you beat out San Francisco or the Rams or the Eagles for one of those players that, in the arms race where everybody's looking, Detroit's probably looking, if you could go out there and pull some kind of deal off, it sends powerful message to players. There's no question.
Where can we see you this weekend for week 9, Baldy?
Well, I'm going to be right here, Philadelphia, Jacksonville. I'll be up in New York tomorrow or MetLife Stadium doing stuff for the pregame with the Jets and Houston. We'll see if the Jets can snap this 5-game losing streak and what that fan base, if they're wearing bags over their heads or what they're going to be doing. I don't know yet. But I'm going to be up there Thursday and then Eagles on Sunday. Yeah,
well, and we'll see what the resolve this Texans team has down. Another big-time playmaker, with C.J. Stroud. But excited to see all that coverage. And, of course, on Twitter, at Baldy NFL, all the Baldy breakdowns. Check out Baldy breakdowns for some great apparel and more. Brian Baldinger, we'll talk to you next week, hopefully after another Cards dub.
Yep. Bo, Johnny, thanks, man. I'll talk to you guys next week. Good luck this weekend.
We all silly like the mayor.